Thank you very much, Mr. Director General and Mr. President, distinguished guests all. I believe that the world is at a moment of inflection. And this must be one of those moments in humanity's story that there's so many opportunities to excite us, but yet there's so many threats that will scare us. The opportunities are mind-blowing. Innovations like precision medicine and green hydrogen and space tourism, the metaverse and flying cars that we saw only in the cartoons of the Jetsons when we were growing up. All of a sudden, these things are part of our reality. And much of this has been, in our minds, science fiction, but yet they're here. It is an exciting time to be alive. But unfortunately, there's also so much to worry about. The proliferation of cybersecurity attacks, fake news, food insecurity and water insecurity, war, disease, and of course the state of our planet's biodiversity and its climate. Each of these in their own right could be considered existential threats. Unregulated artificial intelligence. And when we tally all of these, we now begin to understand why the world is feeling so much on edge. And more importantly, no wonder people are so anxious and want to hearken back to a time past. For me, at the core, to finding solutions for so many of these crises in our world now, we must face the need for a simple concept, one that is known to our children. It's just called fairness. Fairness. Another word for social justice. Fairness that will help us understand that the polluters are not the victims of pollution, should pay the price for pollution. Fairness to understand that a person's religion or skin color or gender or orientation or place of birth or class does not make them any less a person. Ironically, it is the ILO's core congregation, workers, that understand this concept of fairness maybe better than most other adult groups on the planet. Workers understand the value of space, and workers understand the value that leaders and value leaders that truly value fairness. Workers produce when they feel that their leaders understand fairness. Fairness is not just how they are paid, not just how they are engaged, not just how they are treated, not just how they are valued, but indeed how they are enfranchised. For ownership matters, as you will continue to hear me say. Fairness will determine how smoothly we impact and manage all who are displaced in this awful transition that we are now seeing in today's world, of which my dear brother President Ruto spoke. People who worry about the displacement as a result of artificial intelligence and robots and software. We must work tirelessly as governments to provide the environment within which jobs can be created for our people, because without that basic dignity, our people will be at the mercy of others. Fairness will be determined by who owns the robots and who owns the enterprises, as I said when I addressed this body on its centenary anniversary. Ownership matters. Fairness will also determine how we smoothly manage global migration and afford people the human right of fair movement. Why should capital move and not people? Especially where there are parts of the world where clearly people are needed to be an engine of growth. We have seen the horror as it unfolds off Greece as we meet here this morning, for yet hundreds more passing from this mortal earth. When will enough be enough to motivate action? Fairness will determine how we leverage advanced technologies and policies to ensure that people engaged in the gig economy and remote work will have access to high-quality social protection wherever they may be. That the modalities have changed does not mean that the values that underpin all that we stand for should be ignored. Fairness matters in the gig economy. Fairness will help us to understand that the countries of the global north should not have access to better financing options than countries in the global south, just because those in the north colonize those in the south and continue to shape a world order in their own image almost 8 decades after the Charter of the United Nations was settled. A simple word: fairness. My friends, it is for this reason that we have brought the Bridgetown Initiative, a collection of views reflective not only of our own countries, but of those of other countries across the world and institutions and academia, collecting in one space our views and sentiments that we hope will propel a movement towards fairness. A Bridgetown Initiative that seeks to find the financing that will allow us to save our planet by facilitating the private sector through lowering and leveling the cost of debt between those who work in the global north and the global south. Not to have announcements in Glasgow like the Jet P, made with great ceremony and celebration, but not to be able to get off the ground because the cost of capital in South Africa is significantly higher than the cost of capital in Europe. A Bridgetown Initiative that therefore will allow the private sector to play their part in helping us to reach 1.5 degrees, because mitigation matters wherever it takes place on this earth. And governments, while we seek to adapt, need partnership with us to be able to transform into a just transition, particularly with the mitigation necessary to contain the temperatures within that 1.5 degree. A Bridgetown Initiative that allows us to adapt and make ourselves and circumstances more comfortable and more resilient to meet these multiple crises, to meet these floods and these wildfires and these hurricanes and the sargassum seaweed that threatens so much coastal economies, and the hurricanes, the heart attack of the climate crisis. As we see those in the Asian subcontinent brace for yet another typhoon to come on shore, what will tomorrow's headlines be as a result of that episode? A Bridgetown Initiative that is also about recognizing that there needs to be a relaxation on debt anchors that by their very ambitions and stiff trajectory meet the needs of academia and institutional bureaucrats, but do not protect our vulnerable people and do not protect the institutions that are necessary to fuel growth. A Bridgetown Initiative that is about securing truly long-term money, not the 10 and 20-year money that we're expected to meet the Sustainable Development Goals with, but cannot stretch sufficient to be able to provide education or health care or decency to the people who depend on us the most. A Bridgetown Initiative, my friends, that underscores global moral strategic leadership for fair and balanced growth and for opportunities between, yes, the North and South together, not adversarially, to ensure that we can propel our people through this polycrisis moment. A Bridgetown Initiative that understands that the route to Paris next week to discuss a new global financial pact starts here today in Geneva at the World of Work Summit when we discuss social justice for all before settling on the accounting mechanisms. My friends, in the case of Barbados, our creed has been simple. Share the burden, share the bounty. Share the burden, share the bounty. Many hands make light work. And of course, that golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Simple, simple precepts that if we followed them would promote fairness and social justice, solidarity and caring. For whether it is among children, as I've said, or among adults in the public sphere in the workplace, these are the principles that must respect the dignity of each human being, regardless of the circumstances, and that must be the absolute imperative upon which we build if we are to give opportunity and hope to our people. These are matters that we feel strongly about because in Barbados and in the Caribbean, we come from a history and a place where labor and human development was born out of unfairness and the most horrific treatment of human beings, not for a decade or half a decade, but for centuries. My friends, that is why we've been the place that has produced in the region so many outstanding pioneers and stalwarts of social justice over the last century. And that is why I stand here today proud, because two of my own members of parliament have played and continue to play a critical role in these discussions this week. My Minister of Labour, the Honourable Colin Jordan, and the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union, the Honourable Tony Moore. They have spent the week, I am told, as recent as 1 o'clock this morning, concluding the concerns for a just transition towards an environmentally sustainable economies and societies for all that I trust that this conference will adopt tomorrow. I give you that context because this is a small country, 166 square miles, that says these things but lives by these things. And we continue to make a difference because we believe that this is how our journey across independent statehood should shape. Seeing people, hearing people, and feeling people. We deeply understand systematic and systemic unfairness, and we deeply understand the need for social justice. And that is why I salute the mission and work, sir, of you as Director General of this institution. I am in full agreement with your call for partnership within and outside the multilateral system to ensure that those in the Global South not only have the access to tools, but indeed the requisite skills and capacity to take advantage of opportunities in the future of work. Failing that, what will be the result? Deeper inequalities, more cause for persons to hold on to things that are familiar but that may well be discriminatory, as we are seeing across all sides of the Atlantic and all parts of the world. This work of social justice within the relationship between the global North and the global South is also a work that must be done. And who better to anchor this than the ILO, the only institution that has tripartite membership globally in the UN system. And I say so from a country whose governance model is anchored in the social partnership, a tripartite mode that celebrated 30 years this year of that approach to governance to secure our own stability and progress. The need to expedite, therefore, progress across the global community and within countries for fairness and a level playing field, especially in the global South, may be a century too late, but that must not daunt our perseverance to secure it, to fight for it. And that is why I support a global coalition for social justice. There's a deep recognition that to make this world a better place, there is no one topic or no one organization or no one leader who can allow it to happen. To make our world a better, fairer place, we need a coalition of the willing to work together each and every day. We need many hands to make light work. We need to share the burden and share the bounty. And we need to treat each other as we would want to be treated. I know that for many everyday people, workers in shops or in offices or in fields or in factories going about their everyday lives, that these big problems may seem outside the scope of what you are facing, between the difficulty of rising, in some instances with limited food, the stress of keeping a family together, all of the other things that keep you preoccupied. But if we don't do our part, what seems intolerable to you will be completely unbearable for you tomorrow. And that is why we come here today, to make that difference, to allow people to sleep easier each and every night. And I tell you that there is no more noble pursuit than that. No more noble pursuit. On the 1st of May of this year, in Barbados, we came together, workers, the private sector, and the government, in our social partnership, to declare that we shall work hand in glove to implement Mission Barbados, which is really 6 missions, to transform our nation, and yes, to become ambitiously so, world-class in all that we do and all that we say. Those missions extend to playing our role in saving our planet by promoting sustainable behavior, to prioritize the blue and green activities in all that we do, because one by one we make a difference, not just in large announcements and pronouncements from stages. We come together to seek to keep our country safe and healthy, because if our people are not safe and if they are not healthy, the journey will not be made. We come together to ensure that our people do not suffer from food and water insecurity, because day by day it is through bread and water that life shall be secured. And we come together in the mission of reinforcing national identity and boosting confidence, because for centuries we were told that everything black is nefarious and evil and everything white is pure and good. And the dismantling of that ideological brainwashing will not happen purely by the changing of laws, but only through mental emancipation, as Marcus Messiah Garvey taught us almost a century ago. And we come together to place priority on the enfranchisement and empowerment of our workers, because it is not governments that grow. And while enterprises claim the honor of growth, it is labor that fuels the path of growth for enterprises. My friends, we come together equally in that mission to recognize that we cannot run an analog country or government in a 21st century, and that the digitization of all that we do, while being anchored in the ethical values of our time, will help give us the balance to move forward, recognizing that perhaps the greatest evil of the digital revolution is anonymity and lack of accountability. And if we can alter that, then technology will truly be a tool of empowerment and not a platform for the destruction of humanity. When we set a common mission in our country, we have the experience of being successful. We achieve it. The evidence for us has been clear. When we came to office 5 years ago, we had less than 4 weeks foreign reserves, and the value of our dollar was at risk. And we came together, workers, the private sector, and government, with a single mission. And today, our dollar is way out of threat of being devalued, and our people are protected from that horrendous spectacle of devaluation after devaluation after devaluation. For devaluation is not only of currency, but of lives and the quality of lives when it happens. And similarly, we came together to fight something not of our own making, a pandemic that literally decimated this world after a century of not knowing what that could be. The last experience being the Spanish flu, when none of us, I suspect, in this room were alive. And even during the pandemic, in coming together, we continued to see, hear, and feel people. For in our own country, we appointed, in spite of the difficulties that we faced, in spite of being in an IMF program, we appointed thousands of public servants as of right who were acting in positions for 3 years or more. We introduced a minimum wage when others said it would destroy our economy if we did so. And 2-3 years later, we are still standing, as you can see. We came together to fight the battles of our time. And my government and country, Barbados, are ready today to put in the hard work, yet and yet again, to make this world fairer and to make our country fairer. Above all else, it is urgent. Fairness, trust, and accountability will be the currency needed within and across our countries globally to make that defining difference at this inflection point. As we just heard from my dear brother, President Ruto, we must summon the will and the determination and know that it is possible, because others before us were equal to the challenge, equal to the time. And those of us who have been given more than any other generation in humanity must not now believe that it is time to just be dilatory and to wait on somebody else to make that defining difference. Social justice in whatever we do must be our core driver. We tell our children to treat each other fairly because we know the consequences to them if they do not do so. I say simply to us today, we just need to do it. We have no other choice for the sake of humanity. I thank you.